If you're a bit of a disaster when it comes to packing for vacation, stay tuned for today's video. Hello there, welcome to my channel. My name is Sarah and I am the award-winning style coach. Today I want to share with you my top tips for packing like a pro. Why am I an expert in this area? Well, I've traveled to over 80 countries, and so I've learned a thing or two about packing for short haul, long haul, short stays and long stays, and many different climates. So I've definitely learned a thing or two along the way. So I'm going to share my top tips with you today. The first thing you're going to want to do is check the climate, naturally. I'm kind of taking it for granted that everybody does this, but just in case, you've got to check the weather wherever you're going, particularly if you've got multi-destinations on your trip and you might have different climates. So you've got to take into consideration what's going on weather-wise where you're going, and don't forget the in-between parts that you might be traveling to the airport where it's cold, taking off, and it might be stinking hot where you're going, and then you're arriving back into the cold. So you've got to take into consideration all of these different climates that you're going to be experiencing along the way. Do try to avoid bulky items where possible. I always find that thinner layers is best because you can always take off a few, put on a few, and they don't take up as much room as one bulky item. You'll also get more out of them in terms of, well, I can wear that top with a pair of shorts, or I can wear it with jeans as well and layer a sweater over the top. So it's much more versatile if you can layer up with thin layers. So do check the weather. Take a note of what the temperatures are going to be like during the day and at night, and what the wind is going to be like. I was in Portugal not long ago, and while the temperature showed 25 degrees, when the wind blew, especially in the evenings, it was chilly. And so I had to have a couple of extra layers for that in the evening. Always remember, of course, that even if you are traveling from a hot climate to a hot climate, you've got to get on that plane. And planes can be pretty chilly at times. I know from spending 8 years working on one. So definitely think about, even if you are going to a hot climate, you will experience at times cooler places with AC. And so you've got to be prepared for that. So always think about having a hoodie or some sweaters with you just for those moments. The second thing I think about when I'm traveling is working with a very specific color palette. When you work with a color palette, things work together really easily and you can mix and match your items, which means you don't have to take as much. So I already work with a color palette, that's the winter color palette, but of course I don't want to be taking too much in terms of blues, purples, reds, greens, yellows, and they're all kind of single individual pieces that don't work together. What I want to do when I'm traveling is know my light neutrals. In this case, mine would be off-white, a soft white. I also want to know my dark neutrals. I go with black. I also want to think about my metallics. My metallic is silver. I'm going to work around that in terms of jewelry or anything in my clothes that might have metallics in them. Then I'm going to think about maybe 2 accent colors to include in my suitcase. So one of my accent colors will be pink. I already have a lot of pink in my wardrobe, and so I know that's going to work well with my neutrals and with my metallics. I'll also consider blue as one of my accent colors as well. And so within those 5 colors, I can be really specific about what I'm taking out of my wardrobe and putting into my suitcase. When I do that, I know things are going to work well together. So working with a kind of a mini color palette is the way to go if you are packing for a trip. The next thing I might think about when I'm traveling is, depending on the length of my travels, I want to be sure if there is washing facilities or not. That's going to influence how I pack. So if I can wash things where I'm going, then I don't need to take as much with me. So I'll always do a little bit of research in terms of, do I have washing facilities there? This is particularly important if it's a long trip. The next point is a really important point, I think. If you are traveling with things that are one of a kind, expensive or irreplaceable, they don't even have to be expensive, they just might mean a lot to you, or one of your favorite pieces. It could be €5 or $5, or it could be 500. It doesn't really matter about the price, it's what it means to you. If there's something in your collection that you would hate to lose and that you couldn't replace, so I'm talking about irreplaceable items, always put these in your hand luggage. Do not risk putting them into the hold, into your large suitcase, where, you know, I've had it done before, suitcases go missing, you don't know if you're going to see your things again, and it doesn't feel good. So if you have items that are irreplaceable to you, make sure to keep them close, keep them in your hand luggage, keep them where you are responsible for them and it's nobody else's responsibility. You'll also want to think about your special events that you have or a special itinerary that you have coming up on your trip. So if it's a work trip, maybe you're speaking at a conference, or maybe you're going into the jungle and you're going trekking for a few days, you're going to want to think about specific clothing items for those events. These may not be your everyday clothes, you may require something. So what I like to do is write down my itinerary and see what occasions need particular outfits that are not going to be ordinarily in my everyday clothes. So this is going to make sure that you are dressed for the occasion and you do not forget anything. When I think about these occasions, I'm thinking about not just, okay, I need those trousers, I need that top. I'm thinking about everything from head to toe. Jewelry, underwear, clothes, any accessories, belts, anything at all that could go into that outfit. I list them all specifically so they're not missed out on. So I also like to pay a lot of attention to underwear, specifically bras. So if you can find a nude colored strapless bra that has detachable straps, that is going to be incredibly versatile when it comes to traveling. You're going to get more use out of that than some kind of red lacy number, which can be difficult to wear depending on what items of clothing you've got. So go for a t-shirt style strapless bra with the detachable straps, and that way you're going to get so much more use out of that item. Also remember that bikini tops can double up as bras, depending on your bust, of course. If you have a larger bust, you're going to want to have that extra support that you may not get in your bikinis. So keep that in mind as well. But you can really minimize the amount of bras that you take with you. You don't have to have a bra for every outfit. You just need to choose well. Finally, when I have this mapped out, then I make a list. I don't go anywhere without making a list. So I'll break that list down into different categories. I'm going to have my hand luggage and what's going to go in that. Particularly if I have a handbag and a separate rolly case, I'm going to list what's going into those items. And I'm going to list the items that are going into my main suitcase. And I'm going to make a separate list for my technology items, my gadgets, and all the chargers that come with it. Because these days they tend to have different charges for everything. So I want to make sure that I've got all of those things with me. So this is how I go about packing for my trip. Let me know if you have anything else that you consider when you go traveling. I'd love to hear about it down below. That's it for today's video. Thank you so much for watching. I do hope to see you again next week. Take care.